Hey everyone, so today's video is going to be my experience with feather touch brow tattooing. Now this procedure, I guess you could call it, goes under quite a lot of names, but I refer to it as feather touch brow tattooing. Some people just call it brow tattooing, some people call it feather stroke tattooing. There's so many different names, but it's basically where you get your eyebrows tattooed. Now I wanted to share my experience with you guys just because I got my eyebrows done back in January of this year and it's now August, so it's been quite a few months since I had mine done. Now I'm not discounting any of the other kind of reviews that you may see on YouTube, but I find that a lot of people do reviews when the tattoo is fresh, when they've just gotten it done. And while that's all completely fine, it's not necessarily how the tattoo ends up as the final result, I guess you could call it. So I wanted to do this video just to show you guys how it really looks after it's completely healed, after everything is done and it's actually starting to fade almost, which is kind of the stage that I'm at because it's been so long since I got it done. So hopefully you guys enjoy seeing this video. Like I said, I got it done way back in January. And let me be clear actually first before I say that. This procedure, this whatever you want to call it, I chose to do myself. I was not approached by anyone, I was not paid by anyone, I booked this appointment myself. So I want to make that clear in this video because I feel like a lot of people get almost sponsored or encouraged to go and do this by a particular person and then they do a review and they say it's all great. But in the first place they only got it done because they were offered to get it done for free for a video, if that makes sense. Now not necessarily saying that everyone does that, but I feel like a lot of people who have done these eyebrow tattoo videos, they have been endorsed by a particular company to get it done and do a review on it. So I want to be clear that no one endorsed me. I found the tattooist myself. I booked it myself. I paid for it myself. So this is really a consumer review. This is someone who really wanted this done and I wasn't a YouTuber, I was a client. So I want to make that completely clear. Now, like I said, I got it done back in January this year and I got it done at a place called Arch Cosmetic Tattooing in Newcastle. And I originally was planning to fly to the Gold Coast or go to Sydney to go to somebody. And I was very lucky in the fact that I came across Arch Cosmetic Tattooing, who is owned by a lady named Jess. I'm so lucky I came by her because it was in Newcastle, which is where I live, so I didn't have to travel anywhere and I am so happy with my experience, but I'll get into that a bit later. Now probably the number one question that you're burning to know is how much did it cost? Now when I was looking to go to the Gold Coast or go to Sydney or whatever, a lot of people quoted me $900 to about $1,200 and that's for the microblading, feather touch tattooing, whatever you want to call it. That's how much they were quoting me, which at the time, I really wanted it done. I hated my eyebrows. They were so thin and sparse that I was just like, yep, sign me up, I'm happy for it. But I never booked it just because I financially was not comfortable enough to do that at that point. I don't know, I wasn't completely thrilled by those prices, but at the same time, I was willing to do it because I really wanted to do it. However, I'm glad that I found Jess at Arch Cosmetic Tattooing because I was charged $600. So your experience is split into two different sessions. There's your first session where you meet the person that does your tattooing, they draw them on your face and you make sure they're okay, and then they do the first session, so they actually do the strokes and tattooing and everything. And then for the second session, that comes 6 weeks after and it's your perfecting session, which is where they go over the tattoo again just to make sure that everything's 100%. Just because the skin on your face is different to the skin on your body, it reacts different to ink, and so some parts may fall out, which I will discuss a little bit later. So when I broke up those two sessions between $600, it worked out to be $300 a session, and honestly, I was totally okay with paying $600, but it is still something that I had to save up for just because $600 is a lot of money. Anyway, so yeah, I booked my appointment in November of 2016 and my actual appointment was in like the middle of January of 2017. And I don't want this to be like a massive review on the place that I went to just because I imagine everyone's experience will be different with this particular person, but I am absolutely thrilled with my results that I got from Jess at Arch Cosmetic Tattooing. I would totally recommend her. I don't want to go on about it too much just because obviously not everyone in the world can access that one place. But if you are from Newcastle, I would definitely recommend her. I also believe she's one of the most affordable in the area. Onto the actual experience. So the first session, like I said, it's split in between two sessions. The first one went for I think 2.5 hours, but that whole time obviously wasn't spent tattooing. So for those 2 hours, most of it was actually spent measuring my face talking about things like how I wanted my brows to look, what color I wanted them to be, what shape, that kind of thing. I'll insert a clip that I found on YouTube right now, but basically they put a stencil on your face and they measure out your entire face to figure out exactly where your eyebrows should be starting and finishing and where the arch should be. It's basically like this perfect algorithm of your face, and it works out exactly what brows you should have to perfectly balance out the rest of your face. So that time took probably about an hour in itself in terms of measuring my face, picking the color, so on and so forth. And then before they actually tattoo you, they do an outline so that you can see what you're going to end up with. Now this outline is a little bit more scary obviously than the results that you get, because it literally just looks like thick lines on the outside of your eyebrows, and it actually makes it look like you're gonna have really thick eyebrows. It's nothing to stress about, it's just kind of like a guide to show you how long the tail will be and how close like the head of the brow is going to go to your like bridge of your nose and everything. It's just kind of like a guide for you and also the person who will be tattooing. Now as for the actual tattooing process, so one of the names it is called is microblading, and that's because it's literally a microblade that they use. So they don't use a traditional tattoo gun. They use, it kind of looks like a doctor's scalpel, but when you look really close, it's just a line of really fine needles. Now they dip this in the ink and then they slice into your skin to make a stroke. Sounds so much more dramatic and painful than it actually is, but that's really how the process takes place. Now before this, I did have numbing cream put onto my face, which really just kind of took the edge off all of the feeling on the surface of my skin, but I still felt everything once she actually dug into my skin, if that makes sense. So it just kind of took the edge off, but it definitely didn't make me numb like you would at the dentist, for example. So after the numbing cream was put on, she did start doing the strokes, and if I had to describe the feeling, I will say the sound is worse than the pain. I'll explain what I mean by that in a little second, but if I had to rate the pain out of 1 to 10, it would definitely be a 1. It kind of feels like a long scratch, almost like an annoying sting that you don't want to happen, you're not enjoying it, but it certainly isn't a strong pain. It's definitely something that you can tolerate, it's just kind of annoying. It's kind of like if you've ever picked up your cat and they scratch you, you're kind of like, ow, that hurts, but it doesn't make you cry, for example. So that would be how I explain the pain, just a very elongated, slow scratch. And when they're doing the microblading, it is quite slow so that they make sure that the ink gets into the skin properly. So like I said, it's not the most pleasant thing, but it's definitely not what I would call painful. Now, like I said, the sound was actually worse than the pain. The sound is kind of almost like a grinding. I could feel it grabbing onto my skin and just pulling, which sounds really strange, and I find it harder to explain to people who haven't had it done. But the sound is very much a scratchy, grindy kind of sound, and that I found the worst because it was just something it was hard to ignore. Like you could definitely hear it, and obviously because your eyebrows are so close to your ears, it was just, that was the most unpleasant thing, but it's not something that's unbearable, for example. Now, the tattooing process for me took maybe 40 minutes-ish for her to do both eyebrows. It isn't uncommon for you to bleed during this process. There may be a little blood that comes out, obviously because you're scratching into your skin. That's completely normal. And also, it is completely normal for it to feel like you need to sneeze, or if your eyes water a little bit. It's not from pain, it's actually because your eyebrows are so close, or something to do with your sinuses. I'm not sure how it works, but because there's so much going on here and it's so connected and close to your sinuses that it actually makes you feel like you need to sneeze. So you know that feeling just when you're about to sneeze but it's not coming out? That's kind of what it feels like, especially when it's kind of like in the inner corner here. That's where I felt like it was the worst. In terms of what areas I felt the least pain, the tails I did not feel at all. And my tails that you're seeing right now are completely fake. My real ones were actually plucked out because they went down at a funny angle, whereas these ones are completely tattooed from like this point here. So from my arch down, that's all tattoo. It's on both sides. That I absolutely did not feel at all, which sounds weird. I could hear it, I knew it was happening, but I couldn't feel it. The most pain that I felt, and I mean pain as in a 1 out of 10, was on this underside here. So all under here, you might be able to see a little bit of tone change right there. That is all tattoo right there, whereas this is hair. So you can see how much mine has faded, for example. but that's where I felt the most amount of pain. So yeah, the actual tattooing process took about 40 minutes. Obviously it depends on your shape, your color, your face, your everything. I imagine it would vary for person to person, but on me, I needed quite a lot of tattooing, which you'll see in my before and after photos in a second, and it took about 40 minutes. Now for after the session, I did feel like it wasn't pain, it wasn't sting, but you know how you have that feeling of a sore muscle, that it's just kind of like that dull, achy kind of feeling? That's what I had on my eyebrows. If I touched them, they were sensitive to the touch. It was almost like they felt like they were sunburnt, but I definitely wasn't like in so much pain. Now after the session and for 7 days after you've first had your eyebrows tattooed, you need to keep them very moist, because they can actually dry up and it can cause some of the pigment to come out when it becomes flaky and dry. That's what I found kind of like the hardest of the whole situation, because I got it done in summer and I had to have moist brows all the time, which that sounds disgusting. But I did, and I always use bepanthen, I think it's called. Yeah, bepanthen, that's the stuff that people use on tattoos, yeah. So I used that, and it's kind of got like an oily kind of texture to it. I hated it, and that was what I found the worst about it. And also, the healing process isn't necessarily the most attractive part, so I'll get to that in a second. First, I'll show you guys my before and after photos. So this photo was taken by Jess, the person who did my tattoo. So she took a before and after photo, and you can really see the difference and the quality of the work that she did in this photo. Now this is what I'm referring to as when most people do these kind of review videos. They do it pretty close to after they've gotten their tattoo, and the lines are so crisp and it's all very sharp looking and it looks so dramatic, and it just doesn't stay that way. So that's why I'm making this video months later. But in any case, that's my before and after, which I am over the moon about. Now for the following maybe 2 to 3 weeks after that was when my eyebrows were in the healing phase, and they were peeling, and I mean peeling. And this is normal. This happens for everyone. It might happen quickly for someone, it might happen really slowly for someone else. I felt like mine was kind of in between, but your eyebrows will peel. And it kind of is a little bit scary, because in some parts it will peel off and the tattoo will almost completely go invisible, and it will look like it completely fell out. Which that did happen for me. On my tails, they almost went completely invisible. It was like nothing was there, and I freaked out. But I did my research beforehand, and I knew this was going to happen, and it was explained to me by the artist that did mine. So I was expecting it, but it still scared the crap out of me. And it doesn't necessarily heal or peel in order. So I would have my tail peel, and then I would have a bit here, and then a bit here, and then a bit here. Like, it didn't really just come off in one piece. It just kind of did its own thing. And it's important that you don't pick at them. I'm sure it's pretty self-explanatory, but you don't want to pick at them, otherwise you can actually pull some of the pigment out. So don't touch it as much as you will want to. So I will show you guys some of the pictures of my healing process. And on the note of fading, it is normal for you to go and have touch-ups every 12 months, because this isn't considered a permanent tattoo like you would get on any other part of your skin. The skin on your face acts differently to the rest of your body, so it is something that you will have to get regularly touched up. And speaking for the person that I went to, her touch-up sessions are half the price of the original, so it's only $300 for your touch-up. Now, I haven't had mine touched up yet. I'll probably look at getting that sometime next year, but if mine stay the way that they are for 6 more months, I will leave them as is. I'm really happy with them how they are. And I mean, like, my brow hairs are quite naturally dark, and I find that the tattoo itself, it is only like a shade or 2 lighter. So unless you're really close to me, you really can't tell that they are tattooed. In fact, a lot of people still don't know that my eyebrows are tattooed. Like, they'll look at me and go, wow, like, your eyebrows are perfect. And then once I like move my hairs around and show them that, oh hey, that's all fake right there, like as you guys can see, that's completely fake. Yeah, it's a big shock. In fact, speaking of moving my hairs, what I'll do is I've filmed a quick clip on my phone just because it's easier to see on my phone. I will show you how it looks when I move all of my hairs, and that'll be from today so you can see it up close and personal. And then I'll do an up close on this camera as well. So this is how my eyebrows look up close, and you'll have to forgive me for getting so close, and if I'm bobbing up and down, it's because I'm squatting right now. But this is how my eyebrows look up and close. So like I said, the actual brow like colour, how do I word it? The tattoo colour, it is a little bit lighter. So particularly on my underside, you'll see that pretty much all of that there that I'm lifting underneath my finger is all tattoo, for example. So you can see it is a little bit lighter than my brow hairs, and naturally that's because of the fading process. So you can see how mine have faded over time. That being said though, I'm still really happy with them unless you stare at my eyebrows in certain angles, like this for example. You can see my tail is completely fake, by the way. But at the same time you can't really tell because it's still got like the hair strokes to it. Unless you stare at my eyebrows, you really can't tell that they are fake, which is what I wanted. It's not something that I want to have to maintain all the time, and so like, yeah, I'm pretty happy with them. So that's how they look up close. But yeah, that's basically my whole experience with feather touch tattooing, or whatever you want to call it. I've said that this whole video, but there's so many names for it. I can't believe I haven't addressed this yet, but I don't have any makeup on my eyebrows at all. This is them with no makeup on them at all, and this is how I wake up every morning. Obviously not the rest of this, but my eyebrows, this is how they look, and I am so happy with them. So if you're someone who has been thinking about it, I definitely recommend it because it has been worth it for me tenfold. I would pay so much money for these over and over and over again. I'm so happy with it. So that was basically my experience with this little procedure. Hopefully you guys enjoyed hearing this from someone who, again, has no association with the tattoo artist at all. I'm someone who paid for it myself, I wanted it myself and everything, and I've also had this done for like 7 months or so. So these are real, true results. These aren't the fresh, perfect ones that you're gonna see. This is really what you end up with. And I am over the moon with this. I find them so natural. If there's anything that you feel like I've missed and you want to ask me a question about them, please ask it in the comments down below. Like I said, I'm sure I've forgotten something. But that's basically it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing this, and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.